Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today's video is going to be a little different. In the last video I talked about going to be introducing our latest and biggest useful toy, but things changed. One because of the weather, another to commitments in doing some volunteer work down at Antique Powerland in Brooks, Oregon, which is 12 miles north of Salem. So I'll talk a little bitty brief about Antique Powerland. If you're into junk and you live in the Pacific Northwest and you haven't been there before, you should, because there's so many different things to see. Just to talk about, there's a cat museum, a truck museum, a car and motorcycle museum, steam powered sawmill, a John Deere tractor display and club, and all kinds of other interesting stuff. So that's the dates for it. Last weekend in July, which would be this year, the 25th and 6th. And in August, the first weekend, which would be the 1st and the 2nd. It's also the 56th annual show. It's been going on for a really long time. So again on Antique Powerland, if you're in Washington and Oregon, even Idaho, show up if you like antique junk. And like I say, 56 years of continuous shows. I've had displays there off and on over 30 years, but I don't go anymore because I can't stand the heat down there. It's horrible. But I ain't as young as I used to be. So anyway, so the theme of this video is gonna be Junkyard July. Seems like July is one of our better avenues for collecting junk over the years. And you know, Millie's got to hog up the video here, but anyway, we got these different things here we'll talk about and why we collect them and why they're useful. So to begin with, I think I'll put Millie down here. There you go, kitty. This is a Prentiss-Wabers blowtorch. And the mainstay of use for them basically was soldering. On the top here you can see there's a bracket, and then there's a little divot right here. Take your soldering iron, install it in here, and put it right here, and then the flame would be right on it. And coming back, okay. Prentiss-Wabers, a really old company, and it lasted into the 70s in one form or another. But I had some of these torches, but none of them are functional. And this one I picked up for 10 bucks. It works excellent. So they either burn white gas or Coleman fuel or kerosene. And so on this one you fill it at the bottom here. And of course you get your handle. Then you get your torch front here. And right down in here is a little tray. And so if you're burning kerosene especially, it has to be hot enough to vaporize the fuel. So what you do is, this has a little knob right here. You open it after you pump air pressure into this tank here, and you open this little valve here, and it'll fill up this tray with fuel, and you light it. Then it preheats the top here, which is cast iron, so it takes a bit of heat to make sure it'll vaporize, and then you control your fuel flow with your main control knob here. And you know, everybody does plastic plumbing today, but the uses that I have for this, you know, if I'm heating some metal to bend it or something like that, or have some manifold bolts on an old tractor or an engine, I can use this, and I don't have to get out my torches, which are big, heavy, and obnoxious to move around. And these put out a lot of heat. And the one thing I'm going to be using them for here very soon is I have a couple of vintage garden tractors that the steering spindles are frozen up, so I can, rather than digging them out of the brush and then putting them on a trailer and hauling them over to the torches, I can just put down something on the ground to keep any flame from lighting a fire and whatnot, and I get in there and put all the heat on it and get it knocked loose. So this is a little bit later one, and of course it says Craftsman. You know I'm a big Sears junk collector. And this one, it's kind of interesting. The basic system is the same. Handle's different, but it only has one knob. It still has the tray down underneath here, but you have to just pour the fuel in to light it, and of course it has the brackets here for holding the soldering iron. But one of the interesting things when you have a vast variety of junk when you're working on it is how they change. And of course Sears, years and years, was really the best stuff, and later years, you know, they started contracting out for cheaper and cheaper stuff. Eventually got so bad that basically almost put them out of business. Okay, well, one of the most produced things by Prentiss-Wabers is camp stoves, and they started out in the early 20s, I believe, and they ran up through the 70s. Listen, here's a 50s version. You can see it's kind of tapered, which is kind of a weird deal. Like Coleman's are all squared off, rectangular and whatnot, but this one has a carry handle here, and it does two things, and that's one thing that's always interesting about old stuff. You know, the thought behind stuff, because even on this brand here, the later ones, the handle was smaller and it had these pins that would lock into the two halves of the case. You'd slide it sideways, and then you could open it up. Well, this one actually has a small little guide here that goes in at the pin. And you open it up, and the handle also becomes the leveling device. So you've got typical, you got your fuel tank, and there's a pump on it for pressurizing it. And this controls the air, and this controls the fuel. This lever here is for opening and closing the second burner. You light it on this one because the tank pokes in here, and you can go back and watch some of our older videos and see how all this stuff works. Then the other thing is it had this folding front plate here. It comes down and that levels this, and there again, because it's tapered, and then you have your wind wings here to keep the wind from blowing your fire out. But, yeah, just little interesting things that are simple but do all these great functions. And there you go. This is a model 4521. Move on to the next. Well, this is a pre-weigh ashtray. And it says pre-weigh, preferred way of cooking. And that goes, of course, for the camp stove. And, you know, like I talked in the videos about theme collecting, and, you know, I got the blow torches and a stove, and, you know, they have lanterns and other things too. That most all of them have a use, but this one I'd have to take up a new hobby, smoking. And absolutely no way. It's just an interesting piece of junk. Well, now we're going to talk about Coleman stuff a little bit. But, yeah, we use these anytime the power's out. If I'm working out in the shed where there's no power, whatever. This has a reflector on it. That was an accessory. And this is a 1966 lantern, 2 mantle Coleman. It has a handle on the back so you can carry it around, and it really increases the light out in the front here. So there again, it's interesting to collect and has purpose. So here's some more Coleman stuff. We were at a small engine and tractor show over the weekend, and they always have a swap meet with it. And so these funnels were there. That's what's Coleman #1. They're made out of aluminum. And the thing I like about these versus new ones have this shape here and a small opening, and so if you have, like, you're trying to fill a gas can, this thing's flopping around and hanging sideways and no good. This has a small area, it fits right in there and it'll hold it in place. It also has a nice screen in it. This one's actually missing a felt filter like this, but, you know, if you ever have questionable gas or something like that, these are really nice. This is felt in here. So there again, Old is better and interesting besides. Okay, well, we're going to talk about another funnel here. This old beater one here. There again, I like using this old stuff better than the new ones because I don't like the taper on those. This has a gentle taper, and so it'll fit better in a wider opening and whatnot. But the secondary purpose, other than being a useful funnel, is this label right here. It says CMST&P and PRR. So Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Pacific Railroad. That is the Milwaukee road that is no longer around, but it was just kind of an interesting piece. So I'll clean it up and get the rust out of it. Be a useful funnel. Plus it adds to our railroad collection, which we really like railroad stuff. Okay, well, what's in this little box is Craftsman on it. There again, Sears junk is for us. This is a propane torch kit. And although it's been used very, very lightly, it's almost like new old stock, and the original tank still has fuel in it. It's got the striker with it, but these were made by Burns-O-Matic, and I bought one many years ago, this exact same kit. And when we were moving, we got robbed and got swiped, and so the only thing I have left is a tip like this. But there again, these things have a lot more use than most of the new stuff we have. And when you get a broad tip like this, that will be used for, you know, taking the wood handles for our tools and stuff and darkening them, because it'll, you know, instead of, this is what I've been using, and it's time consuming and it's really hard to control the flame. This puts a nice wide flame out and does it very quickly. And the only reason I could tell that this was not new old stock was a soldering tip, which I'd never used one before on the one I had, and of course then I say the fuel tank. So there again, theme collecting, Sears, and useful. And Burns-O-Matic does not make anything like this anymore, and this is a very, very handy piece. Okay, well, here's another extremely useful tool I've been looking for a long time. This is Gamble's Artisan Sabre Saw, and this thing, it was on Fleabay and had been on there forever, and I kept thinking, I should really buy that, because the saber saws that I have already, I've got a Bosch one, and it, even though it was an earlier model, it was a piece of crap. And be cutting along and get in a heavy cut and starts cutting sideways and stuff like that. And then out of desperation, one time I picked up one. It was when I got at China Bob's, or as commonly known as Harbor Freight. But anyway, I decided to put a bid in on this for 20 bucks and got it. And so you can see that it's nice heavy duty alloy. Got a switch up here. And the thing that was wrong with my Bosch one down here, this actually has a slot for the blade to go in to keep it square on the cut. And the Bosch one just had a little roller with a groove in it, and like I say, you get going a hard cut and the blade would overheat and start cutting sideways. This will not do that. And this thing is smoother and more powerful and quieter. This is vastly superior. And so the other thing it came with, it's got all the instructions here, a bunch of different blades. There's a chart on all the different types of blades and whatnot on it. An owner and parts manual, description on how to use it, warranty card, warranty registration. It also has a guide here that you can put on it. It's got markings from inches here, so that if you wanted to cut something, you just slide it through like so. There's a screw to retain it, and so that you can cut on the edge of something and make sure that it's exactly the same all the way along. And the other thing on this that was really interesting is that I needed to cut the top off a barrel. And I'd been putting it off because my bush does such a crappy job. I thought, well, since I bought this to actually use it, I used the metal cutting blade. It cut that top off really quickly, and the blade's still as sharp as can be. These blades on this old stuff, the metal is so much better than the new ones. But even the cord, you know, it's just a really nice heavy duty. So that was an excellent find. And collectible and useful. Well, here's another little treasure we just found. They're again useful, old, and interesting. It's a grinding wheel. The thing that makes it unusual is it has a drive chain on it here. It has a reduction, two-stage reduction. You crank it with a handle here, like that. And then here you have your tool rest. You can adjust it for different angles, and then if you want this to come further across, you just put in a spacer right here. One thing on it, I'm not sure what it is, but this threaded shaft, there was something on there, it had two holes through it to hold something on there. Might have been a finishing stone or something like that, but the threads on it are reverse threads too, which is kind of unusual. But anyway, if it's old, mechanical, and interesting, we need it. Well, here's something different. You've seen our toy train collection in the videos from the past years. Well, we just stumbled onto this thing here. This is a 1926 American Flyer O-gauge. It's a mechanical set, wind-up, or clockwork as they were called. And so, the thing is, you get this nice big key here, and you can wind it up, and it runs. But the body of it is made of cast iron, and the rest of it is made out of tin, and it's what's called lithograph tin. So what they would do is they would take the bare metal, and they had a printing system would actually emboss the decals, or not actually a decal, but the actual ink and stuff right onto the metal, which is very durable, but if it gets scratched, it's not restorable. But this set here is basically almost brand new. Came with the track also. And it's just it says Sand Car and American Flyer here, and the car number. Most of these sets came with a box car, but this is a refrigerator car. It says Morrison Company Reefer Line. There's a little operating door. And of course we have the caboose. You see the cupola here with the roof on it. Main roof. 4 wheels. But usually these things are broken, and the mechanical part doesn't work, or they're scratched up, so it was really nice to find almost a mint set. And of course it doesn't have a lot of useful purpose other than entertainment. But I like entertainment too, besides working on all my antique junk. For Junkyard in July, this is our last but not least item for the month. This is a 1976 Schwinn Bicentennial Stingray. That's a pretty rare bike. It's just a fluke how I found it. I haven't collected any vintage bicycles for many years, but this one was a have-to-have. So, Stingrays came out in, I believe, in 1963 in the latter part of the year. And Schwinn was kind of a gamble, but became a hugely successful product line for them, put them in the lead by far. All the other companies had to scramble to try and copy them. But the thing that's neat about them is that they were sold as a bicycle for kids. Well, the interesting thing today, the people that ride them and collect them are not kids. They're adult kids like me. So anyway, some of the features, this is kind of the standard one. It's got a coaster brake, and everything on it is original except for the tires. And those are modern tires. The originals aren't readily available anymore, but there's some remakes that are similar that'll work, and I'll put on it at some point. But so the has 20-inch wheels, has a 1 3/4 inch wide one on the front, and it's supposed to have a 2 1/4 inch on the back. The thing is different from other Stingrays. It has a short fenders on it. The earlier ones had longer fenders on it. You can see right here the Schwinn Stingray, and you can see some of the original decals here. Right here, it's part of the decal. It's a red, white, and blue flag, and that's the red, white, and blue theme. It has red handlebars, white frame, blue seat. It has a original rear reflector on it. Some unlucky rascal roadkill got put to good use. But anyway, Schwinn had a specialized patented system for making their frames, and these things are really super strong. They also used heavyweight steel in them, so they're heavier than other bikes from the years. But when bicycle motocross come out, these were the frame of choice. All the other bikes would break, and then of course they started making specialized frames and whatnot. So anyway, it's got the 8 hanger bars and original red grips. I did find a repro decal set I've got coming for it, but you know, overall for a 50-year-old bike, it's in pretty decent shape, and so I'm not going to restore it. I'll just put some decals on it and call it good and ride it. That's what they're for. So there you have it, Junkyard for July. So we got what's new, what's interesting, what's useful, and fun. So remember, vintage is best by far, and we'll see you in the next video. So what's next? We're going to go for a ride.